You are listening to the On Purpose Podcast, your guide to living a more purposeful life. Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of the On Purpose Podcast, where we explore stories of wisdom from some of the most inspiring people that we cross paths with around the world. I'm your host, Jerrod, and I'm on a mission to help people around the world to live happier, healthier, and more purposeful lives. In today's episode, I'm thrilled to have a conversation with Kristine Palmer, the founder of Horse and Bow, an organization that offers equine-assisted learning activities with a focus on mindfulness, empathy, social, emotional skills, interpersonal skills, and leadership. Kristine is passionate about helping people grow and apply these learnings in their everyday lives through interactions with horses. If you, like me, are curious about how horses can help you develop life skills, you're looking for a unique, meaningful way to connect with yourself and others, I recommend you don't miss this episode. So without further ado, let's dive into this conversation with Kristine Palmer. Kristine, welcome to the On Purpose Podcast, my friend. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderfully. Thank you.
I'm excited to share this story with our community, and really selfishly I'm excited to learn more because horses have always fascinated me. I think they're just so majestic to look at, and there's just something, I think you call them magical in some of the stuff I was reviewing. Magic of horses, actually, I saw that on one of your things. And as a layman, as a person who's never had horses, I know nothing about them. I agree they're magical. There's just something, when you see them, you want to stop and look at them and just admire what they're thinking.
Yes, I love the magical word. I love majestic. I love magnificent. All of those big words. They are incredible creatures, and we don't, until you interact with them, they're kind of a mystery, another M word. And then they continue to be just a mystery that unravels, and you just learn more and more about yourself and about them. They're incredibly generous creatures who choose to work with us. I don't know of many other 1,000-pound or more animals that choose to partner with humans and allow us to do things like ride on their back when we are a predator and they're a prey animal. It's really just such an interesting dichotomy when you work with them together and start realizing the partnership that you can create because they're just really very generous and giving.
Interesting. Do you think they still view us as a predatory animal? Or have they evolved past that? No?
I think there's certainly an evolution because, when you think about horses in history and how they've interacted with men for, thousands of years, certainly there's been some evolution in the whole breeding process and the amount of time now that they've been in captivity. But I do think that because we can impact their behavior with our own behavior. So in fact, if you do something like walk in a straight line towards a horse and you're staring at them, they will move. They will instinctively respond by moving away from that pressure that they're feeling. Whereas if you make an arc around them, kind of in a circular motion, kind of assessing the situation, keeping your eyes down, your body language and the energy that you give off in that kind of behavior, they respond to very differently, and they'll be more curious and interested in you. So I think there definitely is still something they recognize, the eyes on the front of our head and the manner in which we behave. If we don't consciously change that as we approach them, they will behave differently. They'll be on guard or they will be relaxed.
Interesting. And you think your experience are feeding off the energy we're emitting to them?
Yeah, energy is a huge thing. They have, I call it a superpower in their sensory system where everything is more heightened and alert to what's going on in their environment and between two people. And so they can sense our heart rate. So if we are nervous or if we're excited or we have a strong intent to dominate, they can absolutely feel that coming. I can't remember the distance, but it's something like they can feel our heart rate within like 8 feet of them. And they can feel each other's as well. So that's a big part of their herd behavior is when one horse hears something, they hear better than us, they see better than us, they feel, sensations more strongly than us. All of those things, if they get alerted by any one of their senses, they'll pick up their head, their heart rate will increase, and all the other horses in the herd will respond to that. So there's definitely an energetic component I'm still learning more about. And the daily engagement with horses becoming more and more aware of. But yeah, there's definitely an energetic communication going on that may be scientifically explained just as a heightened sensitivity to truly the sensory input they're receiving. But there's really not a better way to describe it than energy, between humans. That's what we don't feel it the same way that they do. There's something special, that sixth sense that's really strong in them.
What do you think, before we move on real quick, you think we don't feel it, or have we just kind of been conditioned to override it?
Yes. Yeah. That you're hitting on exactly the kind of thing that I'm trying to dig into and understand better. I think we are so bombarded with everything trying to grab our attention. I mean, we can watch TV and read on our, iPad or phone at the same time. And I think we think we're excellent multitaskers, but the reality is our system just is just getting overridden by all of that kind of stuff. And so I do think that in the world today, given we are the predator, not the prey, we have the blessing, if you will, of not being that concerned about our environment and what's going on around us. We're not in fear of being eaten, right? Or being injured, or that the animal approaching us is a threat. So I think we do ignore a lot of those things. And I think the more time you spend that I've spent with horses, but with animals in general that are more sensitive to that stuff, the more you realize you're just not paying attention. So I think you're right. There's definitely a question about, can we feel it? I think we can. I think we tend to ignore it, or we just don't notice. And I found that for myself, it's very hard. I have a very logical brain. I really think a lot. I'm analytical. I'm not so in my body. So the more I've learned about somatic experiences and just other energetic, ways of communicating, the more I've gone, oh, so I do have this feeling. I know something's going on, but I don't interpret it and take it into something that I need to act on, because it doesn't matter for my survival. So I think I ignore it too often, and I'm trying more to pay more attention to it and start saying, okay, if I'm feeling that way, why is it? And what's really going on here? But I'm not an expert at that yet. I'm just noticing it. I'm becoming aware.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And I think you're so right on that we are busy and we are multitasking and not pay attention to a lot of things, but we all have moments, right, where we're like, God, that just felt good. Or like, I met this person, I just felt good. Like that. And I think, quite honestly, our younger generation, as much grief as they get at times in generational arguments, I think they're a big catalyst in bringing us back a little bit more to that. Especially working with younger athletes, and you have students of all ages there. And at least my experience is they're asking why, they're wanting to know the importance, they want to know that the relationship matters. And I think that is kind of a pullback to some of the stuff you were saying, paying attention to the smaller details, not being so driven on what we're accomplishing and checking things off, but really enjoying just these moments and these conversations.
Oh, I think you're so right that we have come to value efficiency over everything. And exactly as you said, when I interact with people significantly younger than me, even in a work environment, in a business exchange, I am finding they are reminding me more and more to come back to, hey, how are you? What's happening in your life? How are you handling the workload you have right now? How's your family? Some of these things, they want to start the conversation with a lot of what I consider kind of catching up that in my work experience, my prior corporate experience was not valuable. A lot of my old exchanges at work were very much like, I need this done. Get this one done, checking things off the list.
Right.
But yeah, there is a lot of the younger generation who is focused on relationships, and they want to have purpose, and success at work is more about the experience, the culture of the company, the experience they have at work, who their friends are, how they interact with them, more than the work. And like performing at the best or having the greatest profits or something. There is definitely a generational shift on that thinking. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's been on my mind a couple of times in the last week. Even I've had some interactions with kind of the C-level people that are really frustrated by that younger generation, but there's a shift in thinking that's valuable there too.
Oh, I think, and Yeah, I love it. And I think it exposes flaws in our thinking. And at least my perspective is that it exposes for me flaws in some of the ways I did business or I communicated. And I'm thankful that our generations aren't so far apart that I can't adapt to it. Right. And I can't
Yeah.
take a moment, like you said, to start an email with, 4 or 5 catch up things versus what do I really need to get done right now?
Yeah.
So that's good.
Ooh, that's a good thought about not being too far from it to adapt. I think that's a very classic young person mindset is the old people will never change.
Right.
And I don't want to be seen that way. I definitely want to take the good, from what they see and their experience of the world, and incorporate it so that we continue being better too.
Well,
Gosh, that's really important.
I think that's how we all get better, right? As we bring maybe some of their energy and their, I don't want to say naivety, but the rose-colored lenses they see the world because they don't have as much experience as us. We get to balance that with the experience we do have and find the best solution for what's going to come.
No, for sure. For sure.
All right. Well, I'm excited I really want to understand what led you to the horseback riding and building your business. But before we do that, I got some rapid fire little warm up questions I want to ask you to really get us thinking and kind of know who Kristine is behind the scenes. Are you ready for these?
I'm ready. Let's try it.
All right. Coffee or tea?
Ooh, okay. That's so hard because I would 100% have said tea for the last 20 years. But just in the last year, my husband got a really good coffee maker and all of a sudden I'm coffee, but it gives me a little too much energy. So you may actually feel that today I had a tea first thing when I woke up and then I had a coffee. And it puts me a little over the edge.
Oh, I love it.
Tea is my everyday, but coffee is my treat.
Okay. What's this fancy coffee maker you got? I'm always intrigued.
It's one of those Jura. Have you heard of that one?
I have not.
Jura, and it can make you a latte in your kitchen just by pressing a button. So it's pretty nice.
All right. Who's the barista in the house, you or him?
He's much better than I am, but I will make my own.
All right. Here's a good one I like. Brunch or dinner?
Brunch, for sure.
Okay. Brunch is good. Sunrises or sunsets?
Sunsets.
What are you getting out of a sunset?
Oh, I love seeing a sunset from the back of a horse, number one. And a close second is taking a picture of someone else on a horse in a sunset. It just can't be beat. It is such a beautiful time. And the day is over and you just get to, move into rest, I think is what's so attractive to me about it.
That is true. Moving into rest. All right. Reading books or listening to books?
So this is another one similar to the coffee and tea. For the last 20 years, I would have said reading books because I love having a book in my hands. I like the smell of the book. I want the real book. I want to underline things and circle things and write down notes. But when we made the big move that we'll talk about, in a little bit outside of the city, I now drive sometimes between 2 and 4 hours a day. And so I can listen to a lot of books if I listen in the car. And so I have gone to more listening. I don't have as much time to sit and read as I do sitting in my car. So I listen to a lot more now.
What's the most recent book you listened to?
I'm listening right now to one called The Women about nurses in Vietnam by Kristen Hanna. And she also wrote The Nightingale. It's a wonderful book that I'm enjoying. But prior to that, I listened to a kids breaking free from anxiety and OCD for kids. Because I think there's a lot going on for our teens and our younger generation. And this one was really focused on what parents can do themselves, because you'll hear this kind of message a lot from me as, you can only control yourself. You can only change your own behaviors. And this book was very focused on what parents can do to help their children when it comes to anxiety and OCD situations, not about what your kid needs to do or what you need to get your kid to do, really about what you can change in yourself to lower anxiety for your children. And it was really, really profound. I actually plan on reaching out to the author to get some more context for our own family, because there's just a lot going on. I've got a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old, and the world has changed from when I was there, and life has changed, and it is hard. And I want to be able to support them and at the same time prepare them for the world, for the future that they will have to encounter on their own as adults, with my continued support. But it's just a very different world that we live in than what we grew up in. As far as things are exposed to technology, the challenges they face are so different from the challenges we faced. I just wanted to learn more about that and see how, as a parent, I could be really truly being supportive. And this author has a formula for support, which is acceptance plus confidence. And so he says, you have to accept and acknowledge that what they're going through is hard, and what they're being challenged with is big, but you also have to exude confidence that they can do it, that they have the skills and the strengths, and they can overcome what's going on and make it through. And I just found that to be an incredibly powerful way to respond to children that are dealing with anxiety.
I love it. And what I love the most about that whole, the one, I love that you're studying that, right? Because I think as a parent, we've got to want to equip. I think all parents, 99% of parents want to equip their kids to be better handling at things than we are. But I think sometimes where we drop the ball is realizing we can do it ourselves as well. Right? It's easy to put leadership and meaning getting results from other people, or parenting means my kids have to do certain things. But I'm a big believer that if I want others to do things, they should be able to look at me and emulate because I'm trying it with them,
Totally. I just posted on LinkedIn, Simon Sinek wrote or said, we call them leaders because they go first. And that really hit home with me when I heard it, because it's what I kind of preach in the horse team building and leadership development work, is that the leaders really need to take the first step in awareness. And there can be a lot of reasons to blame your team and to, to say that they're this way, this is all happening because of how they're behaving, and I'm just doing my best to handle what they're bringing to the table. But the reality is there's so much work we could each do on ourselves. And if we take the lead to do that first, like you just said, they will emulate that. They will see the difference in you, and they will want to be better. And to do better and to follow that path. So I totally agree with you. It's start literally every person choosing to start with themselves first.
I love it. And I think one of the unsung heroes of that process, right, is if you and I are working together and I'm working on something, that means I have a sense of humility that I haven't arrived, right? Like I'm vulnerable enough to tell you, like, I'm working on this, which means you may give me grace because it's a work in progress, right? And I think that's one of the hidden things in really leading people, leading ourselves, raising our families, is applying grace, because we're all in an evolutionary process of some kind.
Yes. Oh man, giving grace. That is a hard one to remember, but so important. That I think it was, I heard it on Oprah first, but I'm sure she was quoting someone else that, be kind because you don't know what other people are going through. And just because someone preaches something about leadership, this is the way we should do it, doesn't mean they're going to do it perfectly every time.
Right. And you give grace to yourself, which allows yourself to continue to grow, right? I think one of the worst things we do ourselves is we get stagnant, or we force ourselves to stay in the same place we have been because we're not willing to either fail, right, to explore failing, trying something new where we may not be good, or let go of things in the past that really don't serve us anymore.
Yeah. Oh, man. That's so true.
All right. One more question for you, Kristine. Dogs or cats?
Oh, horses.
Horses. All right. I'll give you horses on that one.
We have all the animals. We have dogs, chickens, mini donkeys. I'm sure there's more I'm missing, but the horses.
I don't know that I've ever been a place that has horses that doesn't have multiple other animals too, though.
Yeah, probably true.
Is that part of like a horse community? Do horses like having all the other animals around them?
I no, the dogs, we always worry about the dogs because they'll go running right under their feet and stuff. And horses, well, donkeys in particular, will stomp dogs and coyotes. Like, they're put out as protection animals in a lot of herds. Horses don't do it as much, but certainly can get irritated by their antics and behaviors sometimes. I think horse people just tend to be animal people. And you certainly see in like the rescue world, once you rescued a horse, you'll take on any animal that needs your help. It's really dangerous. They call it chicken math, but it's really any kind of animal. As soon as you've acquired one or two, now it's like, why not have 17?
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you take on a horse, that's a long lifespan that you're committing to.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of times anywhere from 25 to 35, maybe even 40 years sometimes. So it certainly is. A lot of people in the horse world maybe see them more as livestock, and you don't have to keep them that long, and you can find a new solution and move on from them when they lose their use to humans. That's a pretty common feeling, but there's also a big contingent of us who feel like when you take on an animal like that, you're taking it on for life. And it's a very hard thing to do when you find we actually have a horse right now that we think is just not a great fit on our property, but we just don't want him to end up in a bad situation. So we're doing everything we can to find either the best situation for him and to make it work here. So yeah, that's a lot of horse people do feel that way, that, you're making that commitment, you take it on and you're going to keep it.
Is that Pablo by chance?
Pablo? No, his name is Zeus.
Zeus. Okay.
He has a kind of a very dominant behavior. He was probably gelded late, meaning he has a lot of stud-like and stallion behavior still. And we have some mares who are females that just the dynamic between them every couple of weeks is just not great.
Did I have it right? You have one Pablo, right?
No, we don't have a Pablo. We have
who was it that you had a post that said you have 99 problems and somebody is one?
Apollo. Yes,
Apollo.
Apollo. He is a character. He is one of my favorites to work with in the EAL programs, the equine assisted learning that we do, because he's super curious, really sweet horse, very interested in people. So he's one of those first to greet you. But he is also such a problem. He is the one getting hurt all the time or causing a problem with another horse all the time. Or he got in that picture you saw, that was our video. He was in the chicken coop. He climbed over the electric fencing into the chicken area, knocked over the bin of food, and I found him eating chicken food, which is terrible for him, like really bad for his health. I was like, I'm going to have a vet call tomorrow because this horse is going to be colicking, and he just does anything he can to get himself hurt.
Did he survive through it all right?
So far, so good. He's still around.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that was funny when I saw that. All right, Kristine, talk me through, how did you come about the horse riding experience and what set off this whole change of life for you?
Yeah, it's kind of a long story, so I'll try to make the early parts short, and we'll get into the stuff that really matters. But I grew up I loved horses, kind of like you, never had a lot of experience around them, but just thought they were pretty magical from afar. At summer camps, I got to ride each summer, and I just loved it. And then my daughter, when she was 6 years old, she was really into horses. And actually, I think it was her 5-year-old birthday party, she asked to do a horse party. And that was our kind of first experience with horses, as I was an adult and she was a child. And then we did some other daughter horse camps, and she started taking riding lessons. And she just loved it so much. And I loved watching her do it. And there were quite a few times I thought, I should do that too. But, it's an expensive hobby, and we'll do a lot of things and invest in a lot of things for our kids that we wouldn't do for ourselves. And so I just kind of watched all that time. And then she started having some health issues between the ages of about 6 and 9. We did not figure out until she was 9 what it was, which is an autoimmune condition called PANS pandas. And basically it is some sort of infectious trigger that crosses the blood-brain barrier, gets inflammation going in the brain, and causes neuropsych symptoms like anxiety and OCD. And over the course of, a couple of years, she just went from this happy-go-lucky 5-year-old into this anxiety-laden child who we had separation anxiety issues. We had, just all kinds of things that I could get into. But in our search for what could help her, we just kept coming back to the horses. So when she was in flare, she couldn't ride. And when she got better, the first thing she wanted to do was ride again. So it was like the first thing to come back and the last thing to leave was always this riding stuff. And so here's the part where we get to where it really changed our lives was in 2020. She was actually doing quite well, had gotten better. We had gotten the diagnosis, gotten a few, treatments that were working, and the whole world shut down in 2020. And she couldn't go to the barn anymore because the rules at that time, as the barns interpreted them, was that if you didn't own or lease a horse, you could not come and take your lessons. And so I looked into equine therapy for her. And I thought, well, she needs to be in therapy anyways for some of her issues. We've done at this point play therapy, music therapy, art therapy. We've tried all the different kinds of therapy, and she just doesn't really love any of it, but she loves horses, and therapy, per the rules at that time, was fine. So I ended up finding it was very, very difficult to find somewhere that she could do equine therapy because she did not have a handicap. She didn't have a PTSD diagnosis. She wasn't a veteran. The populations that a lot of the therapy places catered to, she didn't fit the criteria. And so I ended up driving her 2 hours away for a 2-hour therapy session every other week. Only while she was doing that therapy, it dawned on me because she couldn't ride. During therapy, you don't ride. It's a groundwork. You're working with the horse and the horse is with you. You're riding them. And I just didn't think that would satisfy her because she had at this point been riding for years, 4 to 6 years maybe. And so that's when it hit me that, oh my gosh, it's the relationship with the horse that is what's so magnetic for her. And I just didn't understand that, not wanting to compete or not caring about, the skill progression did not compute with my analytical driven achiever mind. And all of a sudden I went, oh my gosh, it's the relationship with the horse. And so I said to my husband, after a couple weeks of her doing this therapy, I said, we have to get her a horse in her yard. Like, we have to have a horse that she can have a continued relationship with. This is bringing her so much joy. And so we kind of just put it out there. It was not a defined, oh, we're going to do this. It's a very expensive thing to have a horse and to board a horse at a stable and all that. I didn't know how we would make that work. But then in 2021, we were actually sending our kids off to summer camp. We drove them to summer camp, and I saw a listing for a property that was about 30 miles away from our old house. And I thought, if we could move there, we could have horses. It was a 30-acre property, and it was already kind of set up for horses. I said, let's just go look. Let's just stop by. And the next thing you know, while our kids are away at summer camp, we sold our house in Austin. We moved 30 miles away, and they came home to, we're moving in a month. Like, the deal is done. The contracts are signed. And in a month, we're going to move, and we're going to live on a ranch, and we're totally changing our lives. And it was really all because we had been having this inkling of, we need a slower pace of life. Things are getting too crazy. Our daughter would benefit from this interaction with horses. We want to step away and do things a little bit differently. And we really wanted, all the times that we went camping or did things out in nature, we just said, we wanted, when we're spending our time together and when we're spending time with friends, we want it to be in this quieter, easier, slower pace of life. And so, I think we had originally thought maybe we'd get a vacation property or something, a couple 100 miles away, a couple 100 acres, and go there once in a while on the weekends. But when this property came up and was so close that we could still send our kids to the same school, it's a drive. This is why I drive so much. We still drive them back that 30 minutes to go to the school that they went to before, because we didn't want to completely uproot them. We have great friends, great community. But at the same time, we wanted our everyday to be a little bit different. And so that's what we did. We completely changed our lives. And within not even a month of moving to this property, we acquired 2 horses, family-friendly trail riding horses. And then the population just grew from there. And now we have 5 horses and 2 mini donkeys and the chickens and the dogs and the cats, the barn cats and all the things. So that's my long / the shortest version I can give you of why we moved.
I love it. What do you think, or has your daughter told you what it was about that relationship between her and the horse that was so healing for her?
I truly think It's the non-judgment.
Mm.
You get immediate feedback from horses. They cannot lie. They cannot respond to you in any way other than what a horse would naturally do. So you get this immediate feedback, but then they completely let it go. If it was feedback that you made a mistake and they're unhappy, they let it go right away. And if you are doing things in your interaction that draw them to you, you immediately see and feel the power of that. And I think it's just incredibly powerful to be able to tell a horse through your body language or through your words, because even though they don't necessarily understand English, they understand the emotion that's being communicated, the way you're feeling, and they just love and accept you as you are. I think it just really gave her solace, and that's how I feel. I mean, I could just go sit out there or stand out there in the pasture with the horses and just be. She would actually say this a few times, like, they've accepted me into the herd. I'm part of the herd. It's like you find this place of belonging and acceptance and non-judgment that is just very hard to find in human circles. I think you may have a best friend or two that really gets you, or a family member that really gets you. But with horses, there's just this attunement thing that goes on, that you feel understood in those interactions. When you come to it with true sincerity and a genuine interest in the horse as well as yourself, interacting.
Have you seen that be able to transfer over for your daughter and others towards their human relationships then too, once they get that confidence of like, wait, these horses accept me? Is that transferable?
I think it brings a level of awareness to the human relationships that maybe you don't need to value so highly.
That's a great point.
I don't know that it's transferable in that it makes it easier to build genuine and authentic human relationships. But I think you start to see that, okay, if they don't get me, that's okay. I don't need to worry about the people who aren't paying attention to the details, or who aren't in it for a genuinely two-sided relationship, that don't want a partner. I don't need to worry about those relationships, and I can choose to invest in the other people that get it and that get me.
Wow, that's a great point. Yeah. That it's almost like would you say maybe you're developing your ability to filter out important relationships from those that don't serve you?
Yes, filter is the perfect word. I think you start to see that some people really care and some people just don't, and that's okay. Even in the horse world, some of the horses don't get along, and they'll have their little snip, and then they just part ways and they move on. It doesn't have to be drama all day long because you're trying to get along. They just spend their time on opposite ends of the herd. So you see some of that too. It's your one-on-one relationship with a horse. You can learn some of this, but you also, just by observing the herd and how they handle things, you can kind of see, okay, I can snap, or someone can snap at me, and then we can just say sorry and move on, and just not really interact that much anymore, because we're just not the best of friends, and that's okay.
Right. That's how's it been going for your daughter? How many, is this like 4 years you guys have been doing this?
Yeah, about 5 years now since her diagnosis. 8 years or so since it kind of got started, and we had issues. It's just I say it's a waxing and waning roller coaster experience. This particular diagnosis is kind of unknown, and so there's not a lot of doctors that can help. And there's a lot of the underlying causes can vary, and so the treatments can vary. So the diagnosis itself is one of those kind of, let's lump all these people into a bucket that we know have similar symptoms, but we don't necessarily know why or what. It's a chicken and egg trying to fix it, like what happened first, because you get a bunch of comorbidities with it. And then the treatments, sometimes it works. One thing works really well for one patient that doesn't work really well for another. And so it's feels like throwing darts at a dartboard a lot of the time.
Sure.
But overall, I would say the last 2 years, she's been good. We're not great, but we're good. And that feels like a nice place to be, because we were really bad for some time.
Oh, man. Well, thank you for sharing that with us, and we wish you all the best in that journey, because that's, obviously its own thing for sure. I wanted to ask you, you talked about the magic of horses. What do you think, watching your daughter interact with the horses and now your business, what are horses capable of teaching us?
Mm. It was such a good question. They are capable of teaching us so many things. I think number one, we can figure out more about who we are. So it brings a level of self-awareness. We can see the impact that our energy or behavior has on other people when we interact with horses. And I say to people, we can hear these things about ourselves. We can, honestly, a lot of people, when they come out here, they're wondering this. They're wondering, am I too intense? Am I a wallflower? Am I these things? And then when they see how a horse responds to them, when they try to take some leadership or try to connect with the horse, you start to realize, oh, it's like putting it on a movie screen. Like, you see the behavior of the horse. And I help interpret that by saying, this is, based on the body language of the horse, this is what the horse is saying. They're either relaxing by licking and chewing, or they're laying their ears back, saying they're angry, they're moving away, or they're being drawn in. And so the behavior of the horse, I help interpret. And then the people go, oh, that's the impact I'm having on other people. Like, I was told I'm pretty intense, but when you go in there and the horse are bucking and running and jumping, yeah, clearly there's an intense energy going on because the person before you didn't have that response from the horse.
Oh, wow.
So they really are very interesting mirrors, into what's going on inside a human. In fact, we do some of my favorite activities to do are mindfulness and meditation type activities. And the horses, when people really get into that state of high coherence or meditative mindset, the horses are very drawn to it. They're very quiet and curious, and they'll come in and you'll see them start smelling people and being very interested in interacting and kind of joining up with our herd because of the good vibes, if you will, that we're putting off. If the horses do not do that, that tells me there's something going on in this group. And I start asking questions.
Wow.
How are you all feeling? Who is really chill with this and who is really nervous? Is there somebody who's really uncomfortable right now? And you'll see, and somebody inevitably is raising their hands and they just can't chill because the horse is so big, or they've had a bad experience with a horse in the past, or something happening. And so we always investigate based on what we see in the horse's behavior, which is, it literally is like a movie screen is all I can say. You're watching it happen, and the experiential learning process that happens during these activities is so powerful because all of your senses are engaged while it's happening. You can smell the horses, you can see what they're doing, you hear it, and the whole life experience you're having in that moment makes the learning really sticky and really powerful in your brain.
Wow. I'm just picturing as you say that, right? I know, because you're working with people that are successful in their careers to some degree, right? Or they wouldn't be where they're at. And one of the ways I get successful is I mask my weaknesses. If I know I get nervous, I put on a different exterior so that you don't see that I'm nervous, right?
Yeah.
But what I'm hearing you say that I think is really intriguing is the horses don't know our natural defense mechanisms.
Yes.
They don't know how we hide things from each other, how I hide being afraid, how I hide being nervous. And they actually feel what we're feeling. Yes,
that's exactly it. And it is so cool. Every time it happens, it is like amazing to me. And that's what, I've only been doing this. So I told you, we moved here in 2021. It's just the early 2024. I've only been doing this for a couple of years. And so I still get giddy every single time that I say something like, you know what? Apollo is acting really uncomfortable. Like, his behavior tells me he's nervous. Is somebody here nervous?
Yeah.
And then somebody says something. I'm like, whoa, it worked again. It worked again. Or I ask someone a question. We have one activity that I just love. It's called spiral walk. And you may have done something like this in like a labyrinth, where you enter and you're quiet as you go inward, and that whole experience. Well, we'll take a horse on a spiral walk, and you'll start on the outside and you'll walk around the arena a couple times until you get to the center. And then I ask the participants to ask themselves a question like, what do I need to let go of? Or what's my next step? Like, what do I need to do next versus what do I need to let go of? And they can ask themselves whatever they want and then just pause for a few minutes and think about it. Well, there was one woman, and she was walking around the spiral, and she got maybe halfway around the first loop, and the horse just stopped. would not move. And she's pulling and pulling. And these are well-trained horses. They're used to following a lead rope. There's no reason. Nothing happened. I mean, I, of course, look around. I'm looking at the environment. What happened? Did she notice something? The horse, that like a deer that just popped its head up or something could have caused this. But I don't know what it is. I'm looking around, and she stops and she pulls and she pulls and she gives it a minute. She breathes and thinks. We've already gone through a lot of meditative and mindfulness exercises at this point. So I'm thinking she's going to take a moment and then she'll keep walking. She pulls, she pulls, she pulls. And this horse just will not move. She's out there for like 15 minutes. This is supposed to be like a 5-minute thing. But she's out there a long time just sitting there. And I try not to rescue. I try to observe and kind of take notes so that I can, debrief with them afterwards about what was going on. Finally, she looks over at me. She's like, what am I doing wrong? Can you come here and help me? And I said, sure. So I come out there and I just said, how are you feeling? What's going on? And she said, I don't know. I just can't get her to move. And I said, well, it looks to me like she is stuck. How do you feel stuck? And she literally just started bawling and started telling me all about this relationship that she feels stuck in, and that she doesn't know what to do about, and she can't decide where to go and what to do next. And I said, well, that's exactly what the horse is doing. She is feeling, and what's happening in that moment is the horse is feeling that anxiety and that not knowing what to do. And what they're missing is the leadership piece. They don't know what you want from them because you don't know what you want.
Sure.
You don't know where going. And so they don't know what to do. And that makes them very uncomfortable. They want a leader. They want to be part of a herd that is comfortable and cohesive and where everything's in alignment and everyone's taking care of each other. And they're getting the vibe from her that you don't know what's next. And that I don't want to go with you if you don't know what's next. Right. And so we just talked for a few minutes, and I just, we talked about what made sense. And in that situation, it was actually comical when it ended, because she said, do you think that this is the next thing for me to do? And I said, I can't tell you what's the next thing to do, but what I would tell you in the horsemanship answer for this problem of being stuck is that you need to probably go the other way. Like, instead of trying to get the horse to keep going this way, I think you need to curve and go this way. And so she turned and went like that, and the horse followed her immediately. It was like one step immediate. And so she said, so is she telling me, like the horse telling me, that I need to go the other way? And literally the horse goes, and we just laughed as she shakes her head. Yes. And of course, the horse doesn't know. The horse doesn't understand what's happening in this relationship. But what that was a release of this pent up energy that the horse was feeling. And I said, I think you just answered your own question, because what just happened in you when you made the choice to go the other way and said, I think I might need to go the other way. The horse felt the energetic change in you when that happened. And that's what allowed her to let go of this stuck energy and move her body from being a statue to walking and shaking her head and like truly shaking it off.
Yeah.
So this kind of stuff happens every time. And every time I'm like, whoa, it happened again.
That's amazing. How did you come up with the idea to incorporate the horses into personal and professional development like that?
Well, it came from that search for equine therapy for my daughter. So once we moved out here and we got the couple of horses that we actually had one of them get injured, and she wasn't able, we just have really hard and rocky ground here. And so she had an issue with a hoof, and we weren't going to be able to ride her. And I was like, I saw her standing on the side, we're working with the other horses, the people in the herd is all in the arena, and she's stuck in the paddock. And it felt like my daughter being kept at, the time she couldn't go to school, the time she couldn't do the activity she wanted to do because she wasn't well. And I was like, the mama bear in me came out. I'm not going to let it happen to this horse the same way I have fought for my daughter and advocated for her. I said, I've got to figure out what we can do with this horse that, if we can't ride her, because at that time, that's all I knew was that really riding, of course, my daughter's experience of interacting with horses was powerful, and I was starting to get that, but I only knew of horses as a tool for humans to use for riding. And so I started looking into, okay, if she can't be ridden, like, I don't know if this is going to be a short-term or a long-term thing. So if she can't be ridden, what are we going to do with her? And so I thought about the equine therapy part, and I thought, well, maybe I could like get into equine therapy. And so I started looking into it. And, I'm not a psychologist. I don't have a background in delivering therapy. And so I thought as I looked down that route, I thought that's going to be a lot of school. I already have my MBA. I've done a lot of school. I don't know if I want to go the whole like psychologist route. Right. But then I found this thing called equine assisted learning, and it's a lot of similar activities. But instead of uncovering and trying to heal things like past trauma, PTSD, a physical issue or something that's going on with someone, it's more about asking the question, how am I showing up today? And how is that impacting my relationships, the others around me? And how is that then working for me? So if how I'm showing up and impacting others is not getting me the results that I want at work, at home with my family, in any relationship, what do I need to change to get a different outcome? And so when I realized that could be done with a much lower investment of time and energy and cost, I could learn how to facilitate these kinds of programs, then maybe I could use this horse, which now I know better is called partnering with the horse, because truly the horse is the teacher. Yeah. The horse is one who is showing us. I'm just the facilitator of the experience, helping keep everybody safe and interpreting some of the horse behavior so participants understand what's happening. So I found a program through the EAL Academy, which is an equine assisted learning certification program. And their big emphasis was on group programs, because there is so much power when you think about bringing like a work team together. The ripple effect is incredible. So one-on-one therapy is wonderful for that individual and will certainly impact them, people in their lives. But if you train 12 people at the same time to be better humans, and then they go back to their families and their workplace and their social clubs and their social circles, their neighborhood, the ripple effect is really quite huge. And if these people know each other and work together regularly, it can be incredibly impactful for that team. But even if they don't, you're just spreading better humans out around the entire world. So when I heard about this particular certification program, I was like, that is the one I want to do. I love business people. I've been in the corporate world. I've been an entrepreneur. I've been in the startup world for decades now. And I want to help more business people really make meaningful change in their life, so that they can go on to impact everyone else around them. So I just through research discovered that this was even an option. And it actually doesn't include any riding, which was wonderful for this horse that I don't think could be ridden much anymore. So I just endeavored. I went and got certified. I couldn't actually find anywhere to experience this myself before going and signing up for the entire certification program. So I just took that leap of faith and I went, I'm going to purposefully learn more about this particular area of working with horses and people, just see what it is. And the side benefit to it, of course, is that this horse habit we have is very expensive. And so if I could get corporations to pay me to bring their people out, this could really be a win-win, where not only are you having meaningful change, but now we're actually able to support the expense, which is really significant, of having 5 horses on our property.
I love how you said you bring in teams out to help them become better humans.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
horses make better humans. Horses do that.
And I can't help but think back to our initial opening conversation where we were talking about the next generation and the way they want to learn and why they want to know they're important and how they want to feel about what they're doing versus just making money from what they do. And I think what you just said, there's a perfect example of us evolving to realize leadership is in business or government or school district, wherever we're leading, is seldom about the productivity and more about the people.
Wow.
Right? And when you make the people better, when you empower them to become better people, you're right, that ripple effect is huge because now they're better spouses, they're better parents.
Yes.
And the byproduct is they're going to be more productive at their work because they're feeling better.
100%. There is actually a very strong business case for investing in your people in this way, for loving your people. I mean, your team will perform better. They will communicate better. They will like each other more. They'll understand each other. The grace you talked about giving yourself and others, when you start to uncover the underlying beliefs and assumptions that are driving your own behaviors, and then you watch that happen for a colleague, you start to get them better. And you just understand when they behave or respond or react in a negative way, you get it. You know where they're coming from because you've heard the stories, you've seen it in action, you know why. They're behaving that way, and you can give more grace. So you will have a more productive team because they won't be so lost in the squabbles. They won't have so many defensive behaviors. They're willing to give each other that feedback and keep each other in check, but let it go. And that's why I was saying about the experiential process of it all. It's so sticky. Like you'll see that person do something and you will immediately remember how it happened in the round pen with the horse. And you'll be like, that's why they do that. And they're a work in progress. And I am too. And I can recognize and move on from this and not let it derail our project. So there still is that efficiency and productivity play here, even though it's really very much more altruistic than that, the kind of work we're doing.
Yeah, I'd say it's more wholesome.
Wholesome. That's a great word.
Right? Like it's the whole person, not just the segmented part that I get from 9 to 5 or 8 to 4.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kristine, tell me in an ideal world, what's your goal and dreams for Horse and Bow?
Okay, so we really want to turn our property into an entire corporate retreat kind of center where people can come out and truly experience like a weekend or a week where because when you remove yourself from your day to day, you come out to a completely new environment, new context with the horses, new experience, being outside, being with these animals. It really can create a massive shift. But it's very clear that the people who come out for a 90-minute team building activity for the fun versus the people who invest an entire day get hugely different outcomes. And so I'd like to extend that even further and have a place where people can come for days, multiple days. They can do their entire strategic planning meeting and corporate retreat, executive retreat, participating in these kinds of activities and also getting the important work done that they need to do to propel their business for the next year, and spend exactly like you said, that wholesome human time around a campfire, sharing stories, getting to know, the first time we did it with a group that really all knew each other and worked together regularly, there were lots of questions about why did you get into this career? How did you meet your spouse? Tell me about your kids. And so by removing them from the office where we need to get things done and be efficient, and I want to get home to my kids, and that's great. I want to get home for dinner or whatever. That's wonderful. But if you take the time, the 48 hours or 72 hours, and you just say, I'm going to invest with this team and in bettering myself, completely separate from what's happening at home or from the office, the power, like what can happen and what can be achieved in that time is so much greater than if you just see it as a fun team building activity. So we really do want to create an entire space where they can become immersed and spend the time and have a full experience. Feels like a really big thing with a lot of expense and a big investment on our part. And so it's hard to imagine how soon that could happen. But, when I first thought about this kind of thing, it became a reality within the year. So I feel like when you put it out there, the whole vision boards and, vision casting thing, sometimes you just say that's what it is, and then the pieces just start to fall together. So that's kind of where I hope we're heading, and we'll just see what comes.
I love it. And yeah, we're big believers in vision boarding and putting things out into the universe that you're wanting to create and attract. And I can't help but feel from you across this computer the energy that this will in fact happen. I have no doubts in my mind for you.
That's awesome. Awesome.
Kristine, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show this week and sharing your story with us. Where can our community connect with you to stay involved and maybe come check out your property and see how you can help them?
Yeah, I would love that. So we have a website, www.horseandbow.com. We are also on Instagram and Facebook with the same name, and on LinkedIn. With my business people, I tend to interact the most on LinkedIn, but everybody else tends to follow our silly stories on Instagram like you.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Kristine.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on.
And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.